everybody. We are, excuse me, we are on a slight little struggle bus today. It's because I'm in Massachusetts, and if anything's going to go wrong, it's when I'm actually in studio trying to bring you guys a great show. So, my fault. I had absolutely nothing to do with anything technical and fixing. Matt over there is a technical genius. He won't admit it, but he's the reason that we somehow got working after 28 minutes. So apologies to everyone. Thanks for hanging out in the chat
live
room.
Audience.
Yeah, shout out to everyone in the live audience that has been patiently waiting. I saw the it was funny, at 6:59 someone had posted, what is the over under of them being late? And I said, guys, we are about to start. We started, and that's when everything went kaboom, blew up in our faces.
Yeah.
And so I've just been snacking on some Reese's Pieces since then and giving fun disc golf stories while Matt and Ben have been hard at work. So
yeah, for our post audience, they don't really care to hear this, but we're real people with real tech and real computers, and it's not often we have issues, but I'll just go ahead and give the non-disc golf story. This week I did an overhaul on our software, and everyone knows when you go to do software updates, you got to back up, you got to save, you got to test, you got to test, you got to test. Long story short is I tested just a few hours ago and everything's working. And then when I go to actually do it, which nothing was different, didn't work. So quite frankly, I'm pretty steamed inside right now. And I had saved an old revision, old software, and I was able to unzip and open, and here we are somehow, but names are wrong. I think it started off with you as intern Ben, and who knows?
You know, it is what it is. As long as we're talking, hanging out with everybody, you know, at that point, what's kind of the biggest bummer, I think, out of all of this is we actually had a really cool new intro set up for, if you notice, the music kind of changed, but we have a new camera angle that we're going to work on, and I'll be home in Massachusetts for a little while. So hopefully in the time that I am home, we will be able to get that up for you guys.
Yes, and looks like we have already in our green room, which we'll get them in here soon. We have Albert Tamm and David Wiggins Jr. We have them both lined up, so that's going to be exciting. Let's go ahead and get Evan in here. He's been sitting in the side room. Evan, what a journey to get to this point. 30 minutes of chaos, but here we are. We're live.
We're live, and that's all that matters now, right?
Man, I don't know what it is for the stat world or what it is for everyone else that's listening, but what is that one thing, comment it, that like when it goes wrong, it just like, it makes you internally like angry. That was this.
Yeah.
So
hey, I'm a programmer, software developer by day job. Like my entire job is write something for a little bit and then spend 90% of your time trying to fix it.
But why?
I get it.
Is it Murphy's Law? Like it's literally everything tested well. It's literally the click, let's go live.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, such a bummer. All right. But it's working.
But we're here.
We got this working. So
Yeah.
now we just wasted the first little bit on that.
So let's talk some disc golf.
Yes. So disc golf. Because we're running behind and we got a few people in the green room, we'll kind of keep this first intro portion short here. But I want to just ask, what do you think about Simon and his new discs? Everyone's probably seen it now. You look at the view counts on Casey White's video, on Simon's video, his first round, and then these subsequent rounds with, like I said, Casey. My initial thought out of the gate is he's learning new discs. And it looks to me, for some reason, that they're more understable than he thought they would be, or that, not that he thought they'd be, but they're coming out more understable for him. That's his miss, if you will, or his mistake that he's making. So I don't know. What do you guys think? You've seen him throw probably as well.
Well, I think for off-season content-wise, he's doing absolutely incredible. I mean, if you look at the YouTube views just lately throughout the last, month and a half or so, or just actually just about a month, his YouTube videos have been awesome. Same thing with Casey, and they had some fun battles down in Florida. Simon just took a little trip down there, met up with some friends, which is pretty cool because Simon and I were talking just yesterday, and I was saying, oh, if you're down in West Palm Beach area, you should have gone to Okehely Park. And funny enough, that was actually the video that he just most recently posted. He was like, oh yeah, I played there actually before I got on a plane home. But Simon, myself, and Paul Kranz went and played a round over at Buff yesterday. It was off filmed. It was literally just, let's go out, shoot some shots with the boys and have a fun time. And there were a couple really, really good shots as he's figuring out what discs do kind of exactly what they should do with a little bit of power on them. He's really starting to dial it in. I think it's now just figuring out, how much hyzer do I need on this high speed driver? How much hyzer do I need on this fairway driver? And realistically, it's hard to learn discs unless you're in a 600-foot dome where there's no wind. So I think realistically, if he just goes out, plays around with no wind, throws everything flat, and can really get a good feel for it, then I think he's going to have a better time figuring everything out. But one thing that he did say that's really been impressing him lately are the mid ranges and the putters from all the companies that he's able to throw. I think it's MVP, Axiom, and Streamline. The Envy, and I think it's the Proxy, he says are really awesome to throw. He's got this overstable disc called a Pyro that he says is great to throw. And then he's loving the Hex. He got, the Lazatl stamp, which I still think is one of the coolest stamps in all of disc golf. But so he's throwing the Hex a lot, and he has nothing but high things or like great things to say about the Hex.
I know you said you were just casually throwing more or less, but who won? Discmania, Discraft, or MVP?
I want to say, so I took a big number on hole 3.
And
yeah, me being Discraft, Paul Krantz, Discmania, Simon MVP. I stopped keeping score in the sense we were throwing multiple shots and just having a fun time. I did get like 4 or 5 birdies on the back, which was kind of nice, but what's it called?
I think you didn't win is what I'm guessing.
No, I think technically Paul won because he actually kept his score throughout the whole time with first shots, and I kind of stopped probably after hole 14 or so. Just because at that point I was like, oh, we're just hanging out, having a fun round. If anyone has ever played Buff before, this was kind of a cool story. And this is not going to mean anything for anyone else in the country. Great course out here called Buffinville Dam. Hole 17 is this really awesome, probably like 400 somewhat foot turnover, slightly downhill, has a big iconic tree on it. Anyways, in the middle of the hole, there's a little drainage ditch with some rocks, and there's a pipe that leads for the drainage. I somehow, some way, and none of us knew this because we couldn't see it off the tee, and we spent 20 minutes looking for my disc. One of my shots actually perfectly flexed out into the pipe that is on that hole. It's no more than 1.5 feet, 2 feet wide.
Wow.
And somehow 400 feet off the tee, I somehow threw it in that. Probably one of the coolest shots of my career. Could never replicate it ever again if I tried. And it didn't mean anything because, I wasn't taking that shot anyways. But anyways, that was just a fun casual round with Simon, learning his discs. And Paul Krantz, just silky smooth, great form, and rarely misses putts. So it was just fun.
Yeah.
It was a nice 50-degree day in January, which is very rare to get in Massachusetts. The last 2 days have been super nice. So
it is good to have you in studio, Nick. People have been commenting on your webcam lately. I think it's a little upgrade.
Well, I think, yeah. So everyone's talking about the webcam. The webcam is actually great. It's the green screen and webcam combo put together.
It's not even that.
Like
it's you sitting in a camp
figuring
chair.
out. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly. My back feels so much better already. Like just thinking about sitting in a nice computer chair, my back is already feeling great.
All right, let's get them in. Let's get in the guests of the evening, Albert, Tamm, and David Wiggins Jr. Let's go. 5 boom. Welcome to the show, guys. It is good to have two. We're gonna have to manage this. There's a lot of power throwers in the room tonight. Albert.
No, there's 2.
David. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Albert, you make distance throwing look extremely easy. People talk about it being a golf shot. Have you ever tried throwing like 360s and ripping it the same way David does?
No, I've played around with the idea, but I haven't really made it into practice yet.
And why would you? You can throw over 700. How many times have you thrown over 700?
That was my first time.
Whoa.
What a day to do it. What a day to do it.
Nice. And David, you we're talking specifically to both of you because there was a release of a video on DGN, and I think YouTube possibly, but US Disc Golf Championship distance driving competition. And it was really fun to watch. David, your whole life you've been known for throwing extremely far. Do you feel like the competition as far as distance goes is getting like better, like harder for you to beat them, or what? How do you feel about that?
There's definitely more further throwers in the game than there have ever been. And that, I mean, showing up and throwing in that competition was the first one that I'd thrown in several years. And, I'm seeing names and faces that I've never ever thrown with or played against, on the course, but throwing distance as a whole. different side of things too. So there's a lot of guys that can throw it over 600 feet now, which is something that you didn't have as much.
Yeah. And do you think that we see you throw 360 often when you're trying to throw it extremely far? That works for you, obviously. Does that work for the average person, in your opinion?
Unless you've put a lot of time and effort into getting it down, it's probably not going to add distance right off the bat. You're going to have to get your reps in and really dial it in for it to help you.
If you had to take a max distance shot, just throwing it like a normal X step versus your 360, how much further do you really think your 360 goes than the X step?
I think on a perfect throw, I can add about 50 feet.
Woo, okay. That's good. Okay. That's worth it.
Yeah, it's significant.
Yeah, Albert, you don't do the 360. I asked you about that. It seems pretty, like I said, I don't want to use easy. So let me ask. Is it hard for you to throw over 500 feet? I'm going to pick a number, 500 feet. Is it hard for you to do that?
500, no. And also there's the right disc goes with a disc.
Okay, what's your disc of choice?
For me to get the easiest distance is Ballista Pro. And I can play around with stability quite a lot. So whenever I need a nice control, I will use a Opto X plastic, and Gold Line is when I'm really trying to pipe one out there.
So not to put any pressure out there, I can currently throw probably on my absolute best drive right now 400 feet. That would be me going, wow, I really got a hold of one. And that's just to say I don't put a lot of time and effort into it because I'm busy. But if I was to say, hey, Albert, I will pay you, $1,000 a week if you can teach me to throw over 500 feet. And that's not a real proposal. Just imagine it. Is that something you could teach the average person to do, to throw that far?
I think sky is the limit, So I'm going to say it like this.
He says the sky is the limit. Let me ask you, David, the same question. Is that something you could teach the average, and maybe I'm average, I don't know, 940 rated or so, maxing out at 400. Could you teach me to throw over 500 feet?
I would say if you're hitting 400, it's possible. Somebody, throwing 300. Somebody throwing 300, maybe not. Not everybody's going to throw 500 feet just because it's the physical limitations, but 100 feet's a long ways to go, but yeah, I'd say it's possible.
What do you think the biggest physical limitations are for someone throwing the 400 feet, getting into the 500 feet range? If you had to say this is one thing, and I know every single player is different, their form is different, but if you were to tell someone to work on one thing, what do you think that would be? And that's kind of a question for both of you. So we can go with Albert first, or, however you guys want to do it.
I think for me, the thing that I've learned over the years the most is the timing has given me the most effortless distance. So you have to really work that the things click in at the right time, not offset kind of.
Okay, timing.
How about David?
Yeah, my timing's way off.
Timing's huge, and at the end of the day, it's how fast that disc is coming out of your hand and how much spins on it. So you really have to be explosive to get the speed in order for it to go that far. And that limits some people just because they're not able to accelerate that fast. But yeah, and timing and speed are huge.
Yeah, and I think we've seen, and I'm glad you actually brought up speed, because take a look at Albert's throw versus your throw. When it comes to 360, you're using your whole body, all your explosiveness. Albert has, let's say, a much more constructed throw, and then take someone like, Anthony Barella, who just, runs up super fast and then just rips the disc. It comes out of his hand hot. But then Drew Gibson, who has, more of a basic run up, doesn't put in what is it really just a big timing thing and what's comfortable for you? Albert, why do you throw it more of a slower? Is that just how you developed your timing? And then, going on from there.
Yeah. I've worked over the years to get the run up faster, especially for distance, to get that disc more higher. But whenever I feel I'm not clicking with the tempo, then I'm starting to slow down the run up and trying to again get the feel from there, and then again bring the speed into play.
Okay.
So again, you guys throw extremely far. I'm going to go to the competition side a little bit. Really cool that they put a production together, Ted, and others that worked on that project. The U.S. Disc Golf Distance Championship. In your opinion, this is up for debate, if you will. I mean, I know it was the U.S. event title, but does this, in your mind, go down as you are a U.S. distance champion? Like, is that how this plays out for you in your mind? David.
I think the competition is hitting that level now. In previous years, it was more of kind of show up to the field and, get your 5 throws in. And then that was pretty much it. Whoever is at the top at the end of the day wins. And some years they had finals there. But the way that Ted and Coach Chris Taylor and everybody else that helped out with the event put it on, it felt like a real professional distance competition. I definitely feel like, this is the best run one that we've had yet. And it feels like a title this year for sure.
And I want to put out there, you can go 5 up again if you don't mind, so we get everyone on the screen. When you watch it, you realize, I'll call it like the preliminaries. Albert, you threw over 700 feet, and you said that was your first time. That's awesome to watch. And then David, when we got to the finals, which both of you qualified for, I understand wind is different, and so it's in the moment who can throw the furthest, right? So that's can you tell us the intricacies, I guess, of a distance competition like that? Like, it was different in the finals than it was in the preliminary, and so you didn't throw as far, I guess, in the finals. Like, walk us through some of those intricacies, if you don't mind, David.
Yeah, so the way that this distance competition set up, you had a qualifying round where I believe the top 6 throwers made the finals in the men's open side. So you have to think about your strategy trying to qualify. Do you have enough gas in the tank to take some off and still meet that minimum distance that it takes to qualify for the finals, or are you going all out? Then as you transition into the finals round, you pretty much got to give it everything you got if there's a good throw out there, if you want the mark that's going to be confident that you're going to win with it, because these are the furthest throwing guys out there. So there's a little bit of strategy that goes into it, but the conditions can also vary from round to round, and we saw that the wind shifted a lot going into the finals. So there's definitely some nuances there that a lot of people don't realize if they weren't there.
And wind has always been a factor of conversation as well with these competitions. I mean, when you had your world titles for distance, or world records for distance, it was probably really, really windy, right?
Yeah.
And that's not to downplay it, but that's the point. I'm talking about the intricacies. Like, so even in a distance competition at U.S. Disc Golf Championship, you might not have thrown as far in the last round, and Albert actually had the long distance drive, but it was in different conditions, so it only counts per round. Albert, you threw over 700 feet. What is your strategy when you're going into your 5 throws? I know you have time limit. Are you throwing all of the same discs, or do you have different molds?
I think the key is to have like 5 really similar discs. This year I had like pretty fortunate luck. I had pretty much 5 brand new gold triple burst Blizzard Pros. So I kind of like, I knew like if I threw one out there, I could easily correct a mistake. Like if I saw it hyzer out too early, or like it started turning too much, I could quite easily make the adjustment. So usually it's like this, the first 2, especially like the first one, when trying to figure out what's going on. Like the wing, like, is there something further down the field that I'm not really feeling on the tee pad? And then yeah, just rip it.
How do you feel about, specifically in this competition, they had out of bounds lining the fairways. Now, you go to ball golf distance competitions, or really any distance competition, they usually do have some, I want to say, out of bounds area. Do you feel like there should be any requirements on that? Is there a standard so you could like practice for it? Or is this unique to disc golf where it's like, hey, you got to throw a shot that lands within this area? Like, do you feel like there should be a standard there, David?
I think a lot of the time we're just limited based off of the field we're given. In the case of this competition, we had a tree line on both sides, and for the most part, you had to throw it between those trees, whether it was out of bounds or not, in order to get the furthest shot. There was a few instances where discs were panning out at the end and hugging that line, and they could have still measured further, but for the most part, you pretty much had to keep it between those lines. And at competitions like the World Championship, sometimes it's even narrower, and it's really just based on the space that you're given. It would be nice to see just wide open like the desert and throw in any direction, and the furthest throw is the mark. But sometimes you have these limitations just based on where you're at.
Albert, were you surprised by Adam Hammis getting one out to like 670 or 680, 680 feet? Were you surprised?
Yeah, I was the last thrower in qualification, and I come up there, I see the results. Okay, I have to throw at least, I think, 650 to qualify for the finals. And I had thrown, the further shot I had thrown before that was like 660. So I was like, okay, it's gonna be interesting, kind of like nerve-wracking too. But yeah, there was definitely like some big distances that I wasn't really expecting out there that day.
Yeah, Adam, I think, impressed himself. I think he said that was his furthest recorded in competition. So good job for him. Let me ask this question to both of you. Besides each other, so you can't, David, you can't say Albert, and Albert can't say David. Who is a competitor that you, and I say this with all due fun and respect, that you don't want in the competition against you? You're like, dude, I want to win. I don't want you competing because you're too good. Who's the other good distance thrower? You got to pick a name. David, we'll start with you.
I feel like you got to throw Simon's name in the hat there. Him and I have battled it out for years. So yeah, he throws as far as, anybody out there. So
yeah. And again, I agree with Simon. It's hard to know again, based off of wind, but one of his Vlogmases, I think last year, I filmed him throwing 740 feet on a flat field. So like, but there was wind. So it's hard to know, right? Comparison to comparison. That's why these competitions are so great. Albert, who would you pick?
I think AB, like the speed that this comes out of his hand is like insane.
Okay, so if we get rid of AB and Simon, you have a better chance to win. but you did it. But you did it. Congratulations, David, on the win. That just add that to your numerous distance titles. And Albert, the way that you throw your shot, it seems very controlled. When you step up to a hole like at USDGC or somewhere else, and you see that the hole says 580 feet or 620, do you feel like you can get there? I mean, during a golf round, are you going, yeah, I can probably get that?
I have my fun moments at the course. I think when I threw that 710, like couple rounds in a tournament later, I think it's hole, like before the 8-8, the par 5, maybe 12 then, when you throw from the Coliseum to that par 4, that's like 900 feet. I think I threw one like 650 plus during a round there, just because I have thrown it during the distance and I know I can throw the same line on the course. So every once in a while I do some fun stuff.
There you go.
Every once in a while.
So you guys are both more so, athletic people that we have in the sport of disc golf. Albert, you are a natural athlete, also do a lot of weightlifting. David, you've done weightlifting, or you still do it, but you've done it in the past. You've had, YouTube series with Innova on weightlifting. Do you feel like that's a huge spot in the sport of disc golf when it comes to these power throwers of getting into the gym more, working out certain areas of, their body to gain that natural distance?
I think it certainly doesn't hurt, and I think it's good for the longevity of your body, especially having that extra muscle to help support all the power that goes into those throws. So you still see, leaner throwers out there that are hitting extremely fast speeds, but the bigger guys can do it too. I think muscle, like I said, I don't think it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And it hitting the gym, just makes you more athletic. So I think it's an all around good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
How about you, Albert? Do you feel like weightlifting in and of itself has played kind of a contribution into the longevity of your body, but also being able to get that extra distance on your throws?
Yeah, for sure. I would say like there has been like some couple like big jumps when I have noticed during my career in distance, and one of them was like when I started hitting gym. And when you have like good technique, it's like a pretty good base to throw far. But if you add strength to it, the disc can only fly further. And like once you really go like into specific how to get to like those hips more like explosiveness out of their body rotation, like you can really like do the work off the course too quite a bit. And the one kid, like as David mentioned, like you get more athletic, and also your tendons and stuff get more durable in a way. To have a more tolerance for load, and you can throw further like way more often than just by relying on the body to recover.
Now, this is kind of a question on top of that, and I think I kind of get the general idea of a question, but it actually did just come up in our chat. How much are you guys working on your flexibility in your everyday life with disc golf as well? Are you stretching a ton? Are you working like, doing yoga here and there? How are you working on flexibility, and does that play a huge part in your disc golf journey? We can open it up to Albert this time first, and then David will answer second.
Okay. I haven't done it really anymore. I used to be a big stretcher, but like now I found like I've read some studies and stuff. There's like, I don't know, not really ground like certain proof that it helps for me. I just keep the range of motion quite big when I go to the gym, and that should be enough for me. But every once in a while I do like a massage gun and massages to like ease up some tension, whatever I feel.
Okay.
But mostly no.
David, what do you think about that? Did you hear that question?
Yeah, range of motion is definitely, the biggest factor for the flexibility as far as being a part of your throw. So if you are hitting the gym, make sure you're doing full range of motion on your reps. You're not doing a lot of machine work. I like a lot of free weights and really try to get as much stretch as I can in while I'm lifting. I don't wake up every day and stretch. Naturally, I'm pretty flexible, but I do stretch every time before I go play around a disc golf or throw distance.
So let's ask this question for the disc golfer out there listening to this live or post. How much distance now? This is going to be kind of, I don't know, answer it how you will. How much distance is beneficial on the disc golf course? And what I mean for that is the pro tour. Okay. If you want to play at the highest level, how far do you think you should be able to throw? Now, could you get lucky and do a lot of throw-ins? Of course you could, but I just mean generally, like, are we talking have at least 400, have at least 450, 500? Like, where is that line? Because if we're working to throw 700 feet, it's not as accurate, right? I mean, so like, where's that line of distance to accuracy, like on the pro tour? Albert, what do you think?
My opinion, to like survive on tour, 500 plus feet is a good thing to have. The more you have it, the better. But I would say that's kind of like what I see.
Okay, 500 feet will get you there. What do you think, David? Same thing?
Yeah, I agree with that. 500 feet. Previously I would say less, but now I'm seeing the courses stretch out a little bit further in these more open formats. So I think 500 foot is pretty standard now that you need to have.
And to be clear, when I asked that question, again, like someone like me would just be like screaming and looking like I'm throwing as hard as you guys in your distance comp. I'd be like, ripping it, and I'd get out there like 400 feet. Like, that's not going to cut it. What you guys are saying is controlled distance, right? You're saying over 500 feet controlled distance, right? It's not somebody ripping it as far as they can. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Would you agree? Okay, Albert says yeah. So it seems to me like Albert, and I haven't seen I've seen a lot of videos of David, you're throwing far, but when Albert throws the effort backhand of it, it seems like you have that controlled distance on the course. David, does it come to you that way as well? Without doing 360s, you can easily clear 500, right?
Yeah, I can get one out there without a 360. Pretty good.
So
I would say close to 6 regularly.
Yeah, of course. Let me ask this follow-up, and it may be very obvious, but most distance throwers are throwing backhand. How far can you throw forehand? Like, what's your farthest forehand throw? Albert, what do you think?
I think I've thrown like one close to like one hole at Preserve that was like 530. I got pin high.
Wow, nice.
So that's, I think, my, like, I haven't really pushed any further than that, kind of like there.
Imagine, Nick, if you could throw forehand 530.
Imagine if you could throw backhand
I know.
530 feet.
That's what
Disc
I'm
golf
saying.
would be so much more fun.
Like both options. David, do you throw forehands much? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, I throw a fair amount. I'm about 400 feet on my sidearm. I've got one over 500 feet in the desert before, but yeah, I'd say around 400 consistently.
Okay, you versus me. I go backhand. You go forehand.
He's still winning.
Match. Yeah, he's still winning.
He's still winning.
Okay.
I'll
just throw rollers.
Yeah, exactly. We know Albert threw the Ballista Pro. David, what did you throw during your distance competition? I'm assuming some form of boss, if I had to guess.
Yeah, Star Boss.
Okay.
172.
172 Star Bosses. How much, actually, I'm glad you bring that up. How much do you guys think the weight really makes a difference? Like if I take a 168 gram disc versus a 174 gram disc, like how much do you really think that's mattering when I am trying to get that max distance? Obviously it does a little bit, I would like to say, but I don't know the science behind it realistically. You know, do you guys have an opinion on that? Why throw a 172 disc or, 168 versus going max weight on everything? And Albert or David, whoever has the answer. Yeah, whoever has the answer first. Yeah,
I'll go because I don't really know this answer and I don't really have that much experience, so we'll kind of like smoothly forward it to David.
Do you? Yeah, there you go. Do you know the weight that you threw, Albert, for like the 700-foot throw?
I had 173, all of them.
Okay,
kind of like there.
Yep.
Yeah, so max weight, really. Do you feel like if you threw one that was like 165, David, like, could you figure it out?
Have David answer the, do you think weight really matters and have 4 grams?
Huge factor. 4 grams definitely makes a difference, but I would say my ideal weight with no wind would be mid 160s, that 165, 166 weight. Basically, it comes down to, how fast your arm is able to accelerate with that disc, and those small changes in weight do make a difference. The faster you're able to release the disc, generally speaking, it's going to go further. So when I shift from 165 to 175, I can notice a difference of 30 feet on a max distance throw at times.
Okay.
It does make a pretty good difference. The reason you see us throwing these heavier discs in the distance competitions is because we get 5 throws. Mm-hmm. So especially when it's windy, you may not have 5 lighter ones that all fly the same, or, they're just less consistent in higher winds. So we'll reach towards the more overstable, heavier ones just to make sure we can get a good flight.
And just to get something in play at that point. I mean, if you are consistently throwing those max distance drives 640 feet, you're probably going to qualify for most of them. But at least getting 1 or 2 in play, and then at that point you can kind of, like, if you throw, your first qualifier shot, it's 670 feet. Do you really need to throw, 4 more, or at that point are you just trying to throw as far as you can in the kind of preliminary round?
Yeah, if I got one that far, I'm just bombing it after that.
Okay.
If I knew I was safely.
Yeah.
I've thought about this, and some people are gonna be like, "Okay, Matt, we know you've thought about this," but I've thought about this with my kids and distance. Like, how can you get kids to throw further? Right? It's not usually by handing them 175 or 173. You get them lighter and lighter. But just thinking through it, and this is not an aha, like, wow, this took a lot to get to. But like, if I give a 1-year-old a paper plate, they're going to be able to throw that the farthest they could probably throw anything. Like, they can't throw anything that far. They can throw a paper plate the farthest, right? Mm-hmm. But if you give me a paper plate, I'm going to max out the same distance they're doing. Like, I can't get it further. Mm-hmm. So then you up the weight a little bit, and you keep doing that until you got to find that perfect balance, right? For like your strength and form to weight. Like, I'm not a scientist. I'm just saying there is that where eventually you don't gain anymore. Or if you go too light, you lose, right? So that's a fun game to figure out. But if you guys is there anything that we missed talking about for like U.S. championships? Obviously, congrats, David and Albert, throwing over 700 your first time on film must be pretty special. So congratulations on that. If we missed anything, let me know. Anybody? Anything?
I have a quick thing to bring up.
Yeah, go ahead,
if they don't have anything. We saw the team there bring out the radar gun, and that was very cool to see. Got to see a lot of interesting numbers. Do you guys think that there's anything to draw from those numbers that we see besides just pure distance? So radar gun, the more like the fastest throw, does that really mean anything, or can we do any extra calculations on that? Some people are thinking like if you take distance divided by speed, that tells you something like how efficient you are, and maybe you can get towards like having a spin rate number. Do you guys do any kind of analyzing on top of just how far you threw? I'll start with let's go, David.
Having those metrics is pretty cool. It's something that we haven't really seen or had access to analyze our throws with. It's something new. And Coach Chris Taylor, he brought out that equipment, and we're really getting to see how it affects and how it's a factor in our throws. Spin and speed, those are the two big things. What weight they carry, we're still trying to figure out the whole dynamic of the spin on the throws, but generally speaking, the faster the disc goes, the further it's going to fly, as long as you can keep it spinning and keep the disc from warping too bad and have a stable flight.
Mm-hmm. Right, which is kind of what I'm saying. I'm going back to, there's that limit too for how fast, because again, throwing lighter allows me even to throw faster. But again, you're going to get that, like people that threw Japan Open back in the day, they would all get more overstable discs, right? If it was Innova, they'd get like the Blizzard Ape or something, you know, like it could be 150 max and they're able to rip it hard. And it keeps, so like there's all these variables. And I think that's really interesting that they're starting to incorporate this. Evan, was that a good answer? Do you want more? You want to dig into that?
No, I think that was great. Albert, if you have anything to add, if you kind of do any analyzing on top of the data, that'd be really interesting.
Like the stats are good, like the speed and spin, but like I think at the same time, there is this skill, like how to get the disc to fly far. Like you can have like a really fast throw and on the stats, but like if you can't like capitalize on it on the field and really like play with the angles and stuff, it doesn't really like work out. So there's like another skill I think that's like, how to say, really subjective.
I think it was Dave Felberg, and if I'm wrong, Dave, I'm sorry, but I think he had said if for every mile per hour, and I don't know where he got this from. This is a Dave Felberg thing. But for every mile per hour you throw over, like, let's say I threw 40 miles an hour and I hit 300 feet. He goes, if you can throw 41 miles an hour, you'll get 308 feet. He's saying 8 feet more for every mile per hour. I have zero idea where that actually breaks down. That's a rough number. It probably is. But there would be something to it because, Albert, with your skill, as you mentioned, you had to know how to throw it far. You have to be able to do the control of the disc. But if you're throwing it 75 miles an hour, and now I tell you, now you can throw it 85 miles an hour with that same control, you'll throw it farther, right? I mean, it seems like pretty basic. Yeah. All right. I've asked all my questions. I think it'd be interesting if you guys stick around for a few minutes and play a game with us. If you guys are down for that, you have a few more minutes. Okay.
Let's do it.
They both said yes. I think you've done this with us before, David, haven't you? Stat or fiction?
Stat or fiction.
Maybe you have.
Maybe. I came on like a year ago.
Yeah.
We can tell you're on your boat because we've interviewed you here before and you got that, whatever that fish is up on the wall behind you.
Yeah. Same spot.
We got one on a boat, one in an RV. Good life of disc golf.
All right.
Yeah, well, quickly to get into it, for Albert, who's playing for his first time, and David, since it's been about a year or more, I will give a statement, and you're just going to respond if that is a stat, as in it is true, or it is not true, as in it is fiction. So just true or false kind of game. And with that, at the MVP Open, we were lucky enough to track a lot of data similar to the U.S. Distance Championship, where we got some radar gun and distance readings on hole 1. Albert, you were there at that event. I know, David, you didn't make it out to the MVP Open, but I think you have enough knowledge of the tour and players that you guys can both equally have a chance at these questions. So let's get into stat or fiction number 1. At the 2022 MVP Open, 11 MPO players threw 70 miles or more on hole one at least once during the 3 rounds. So just having a throw that hit 70 miles an hour or more. There were 11 MPO players to do so.
I will start, and I'm going to get it out of the way. Fiction. That's my answer. Nick.
I'll say stat.
Do you think this is a stat or a fiction, Albert?
Fiction.
All right. Yeah, team fiction. All right, you're up, David.
Are we saying exactly 11 or
Yeah,
at
so it's
least
exactly 11. If you think it's more
Oh.
or less, it would be fiction. But
What?
my statement is
if anything,
exactly
that helps you.
11.
Yeah, true. It
Yeah.
actually does.
Yeah, that helps you.
11? I'll say stat.
Exactly
All right.
11. 2 fictions,
So
2
I think
stats.
we got Nick and David with stat. We
Yep.
got Matt and Albert with fiction. The answer is
Stat.
stat.
Let's go.
Jeez, man, ruining my thunder.
Dude, that's
yeah,
too
11
easy.
players.
Yeah, like that was such an obvious stat. You wouldn't do that to our guests. Like, no, it's fiction.
All right.
You didn't get
Simon
the...
Lizotte, Vino Makala, Ricky Wysocki, Brody Smith, Aaron Gossage, Jake Hebenheimer, Calvin Heimberg, Anthony Barella, Ezra Adholt, Kevin Jones, and Albert Tamm all threw 70 plus miles an hour on at least one shot at the MVP.
Would have
Open.
been 12 if I played, you know.
I thought it was less.
Just
I thought
kidding.
it was less than 11. All right. What's the next one, Evan?
All right. Sticking with the 2022 MVP Open, there were 3 FPO players who threw 60 miles an hour or more on hole one, at least once during their 4 rounds. Remember, they had an extra round without the cancellation on round 1 for MPO. So 3 FPO players threw 60 plus mile an hour on hole one, at least once.
And
It's
if
pretty
it's
specific
if it's
again.
the same, yeah.
Specific.
If it's the same FPO player, it doesn't count as repeat, right? Across those rounds.
Yes, it is.
3
yeah, 3
different.
It would have to be
Different
separate
FPL
individuals. Okay.
I'll start. I'm going to go fiction because it's going to be 4.
Yeah, so specific.
I'm going stat because now I'm like, he's picking the numbers. All right. What do you think, Albert?
Fiction.
All right. All right. What do you think, David?
I'll go stat again.
No,
All
I'm
right.
stat with you. Okay.
Matt and David with stat, Albert and Nick with fiction. And Ben, don't you dare ruin my thunder,
Fiction.
whether you know it or not. Answer is fiction. Dang it, Ben.
It's too obvious. It's way too obvious.
Oh,
Oh,
man,
man,
we're doing
Ben-
so good, David.
Ben's beating the random
Oh, you
number
forgot the poll,
generator, I'll
Ben.
tell you that.
Oh, I forgot the poll. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was only Emily Beach. She hit 62 just once
Just one.
in round 3. A lot of
Just
other
one
women
player.
got very close.
Yeah.
High 50s, Ella Hansen, Hannah Blomers, Jennifer Allen were all very close.
Which also,
Oh,
shout out to Ella Hansen in general. I think she put out a shot at the distance comp like 552 or 582 feet. It was something
Yeah.
over 550 feet, which pretty incredible. Very, very impressive.
Yes.
And I know Jen Allen does the same thing. So
And Jen Allen hit 58 with a shoulder injury too.
Yeah.
After her shot, she asked me what it was. And she's like,
Yeah.
I usually throw way faster.
okay.
But she had that bug in her last season.
Yep.
And let's get into our final one. I'm not totally sure of the Nick. Do you have 2?
I have
And
2.
then Albert and David have 1.
Yep.
And Matt was 0. All right.
Matt's getting
So
skunked.
we'll have maybe Nick start this one again, just for
That's
if
a good
that's
point.
okay. At the 2022 MVP Open, Albert Tamm and Anthony Barella were the only players to throw 70 miles or more in each of the 3 rounds. So Albert Tamm, Anthony Barella were the only players to throw 70 plus mile an hour on every throw. I will say that's recorded. We did get like 95%, maybe more. So, but just throw
Fiction.
that qualifier in.
I'm going fiction.
I'm going fiction.
Fiction.
Yes.
Fiction.
Yes.
It's a stat. It's a stat. For a fact. I know it's
Intern
a
Ben
stat.
says it's a stat.
Oh man. All right. This is fiction. Take that.
Yeah,
Ben.
take that, intern Ben.
It is
Darn it.
true that Albert Tamm and Anthony Barella both threw 70 plus mile an hour in
Wait.
each round.
Now, how many other people did it? 1?
But there was one other person who did so.
Drew Gibson.
Just one. Well, yeah, Nick, you won outright with
Yeah.
3. So this is just purely for fun. But yeah, if you guys want to guess, Nick says Drew Gibson.
I think Drew.
It's Hebenheimer.
Ben says Hebenheimer.
I kind of remember the name Ebenheimer too.
Okay.
All right, Albert goes
For
Hebenheimer.
Hebenheimer.
Hebenheimer's like a name that you remember. I mean,
Yeah. David, do you want to guess anyone?
Simon.
Oh, that's I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, those were all good guesses. I mean, of course, I listed them out after the first question, so it was one of those players. None of you are right. It's actually Ezra Aderholt, who threw 78, 72, and 70 miles an hour.
wow.
Calvin Heimberg was also really close. He was 68 in one of his rounds. Aaron Gossage hit 69 in his one round. Simon also was 270s and then 168, so close. Hebenheimer was on this list. I'm trying to find out where he was. But he did not. He only had one round of 70 plus. In round one, he only threw 65. So
you want to know what was great about MVP Open was when they did the $1 million shot.
Albert.
Every player is throwing these massive flex lines, and Albert and AB are literally just throwing like spike hyzers at the basket. It's just so incredible to watch.
I don't have those speeds readily available, but like Tamm and AB were just on a different level, like pushing high 70s, I believe, on every shot. It was incredible.
Like not to knock Ricky because he's a phenomenal player and throws the disc very far, but like Ricky is throwing these massive flex shots to get to the basket, and Albert threw like a spike hyzer the first shot, and he went like 70 long. And we were all just like, oh my God.
I think Ricky was going for the skip shot too. Was he not?
Yeah, I mean, it was insane.
So.
But
man, that was exciting. That was super fun, Albert, to have you out at MVP going for the $1 million. $1 million is pretty life-changing, and there was a few times. Did the crowd pump you up? I mean, we were screaming our heads off thinking they might go in.
Yeah, the intro kind of pumped me out too much, so I kind of overturned my disc. But yeah, if I get the hold of that intro and like really can push it into my throw, I'm excited to see where the disc might go.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna do it again. I mean, I'm only speculating. I think that was the goal, is to do it again. I don't know if they're gonna have to push it further or closer or whatever, but hopefully you're there again. Do we miss anything that you guys want to promote? We have you on our show, but this is an opportunity if you'd like to. Anything you guys want to talk about before we let you go? Either of you. You guys good? You need to sell anything?
Well, I was going to say, Albert, this is your first time on the show. How can people support you out on the road? You're touring full time. You're in the U.S. a majority of the year. How can the people that are listening to the show, how can we support you?
You can follow... you can follow most of my journey from Instagram and Facebook. Albert Tamm is my account. And if you there's a new team series disc coming out for me. And like whenever I'm vending, all that stuff is really helpful. And one thing that I wanted to point out though, I think it came through this conversation before too, but one cool feature that was with this distance event was there's like the 2 rounds, the qualification and the final round. I think that's a really cool format, and I hope that we like more distance tournaments take advantage of it. They will bring out the most consistent thrower, and you see that format like in athletics and all sorts of like different areas too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, definitely.
Hey, before, and we'll give you some closing thoughts too, David. Albert, I've said your name tonight, Albert Tamm. I think Evan has said Albert Tamm. Can we just settle this? You hear it on DGN, people saying it both ways all the time. How do you say your last name? I thought I just heard it. How do you say your last name?
Tamm.
Tamm.
It's with an accent, so it's like down the middle.
I think I'm closer. I do.
Like the M is like
Tamm.
Okay. Because a minute ago, maybe you weren't saying your last name, but I thought I had heard Tamm, and I was like, okay. And then I don't know. Long story short, we'll give the M more of a feeling. Tamm.
There you go.
All right.
All right, David. How about you? Any closing thoughts? Any way that the people can go out and support the David Wiggins Fund Tour? However, I don't know how much you're planning on playing this year. Are you getting more into the professional scene again?
Yeah, I'll be hitting some tour spots this year. I'm not going to be touring full time, but flying in and out, and also doing some distance clinics out there. Again, hopefully with Double G. So keep an eye out for those on the road. Wanted to give a shout out to everybody that helped put on that U.S. distance competition, because it's moving in the right direction, leaps and bounds. Ted and Coach Chris Taylor, they worked on the video and created all these cool stats and everything. If you haven't watched the YouTube video of it, it's really cool. Definitely go watch it. I think we're close to 200,000 views already in the first week.
Dang.
And I'll be coming out with a kind of a commemorative disc for that distance championship here in the next few weeks. That'll be on my website. So that'll be one way if anybody wants to buy one of those discs. Good way to support. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we appreciate having you on. I think you could go to 3 up or 4 or whatever. 3 up's fine. We didn't mean for Albert to drop off. If he did.
Did he just peace out?
He might have peaced out. No, he's still in there. It's just dark. His camera's off or something. So if you can hear us, Albert, great having you on the show. Yeah. And the same to you, David. Thank you coming on the show. We're grateful that you guys. Yeah, we're grateful you take the time for this.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Catch y'all later.
Yes, absolutely. Peace out. All right. I'm not sure we actually just heard David say bye there because you had him off screen. I think. I don't know. It's okay. Either way, David said bye and he said, thanks, y'all. All right, cool. Wow. There's a lot to take in there. And I would have benefited more probably from being in person and being like, show me what I'm doing.
Well, I was just about to say, I mean, for David Wiggins, one of the most powerful throwers in the world, has a world record, is the world record holder with it. Doing distance clinics and promoting that and helping people work on said backhand form and their straight up distance. I mean, every single player that I ever talked to in the sport, when you're playing a casual round, how can I get more distance?
Yeah.
And like, that's still something 10 years later that I wonder, like, what can I do next to help elevate my distance? And going to clinics like that, I mean, that's an incredible, if he was to do, 10 of those a year, just travel around to the certain events that he goes to and runs a massive clinic, he would make a crap ton of money off of it. Not that he's doing it all for the money, but in the sense of like making
You're
those
doing
trips,
it for the money.
making those trips. Well, I mean, you got to pay for the trip. So, I mean, doing that, every single person would want to sign up for it. I host small clinics of just, how to help out your backhand, your forehand, your putting. And that has gotten anywhere from 20 to 70 people before. Mm-hmm. And that's coming from just an average 1,000 rated guy. But when you're talking about one of the best distance throwers in the world and you're advertising that, I mean, it's incredible.
All right. Albert just texted me. He said, my phone did some funky stuff. Shoulder shrug. Anyway, thanks for having me on the show. It was a blast chatting with all of you guys. So
awesome.
Thank you,
Albert.
Thank you, Albert.
And go out, for anyone listening right now, take a look at, Albert and David's pages, look for their discs. I mean, they're two awesome people. I was fortunate. I think the first ever practice round that I had with Albert was 2021 Worlds out in Utah. And we were practicing on the Mulligans course. Now, this is my first round ever in Utah. There's elevation involved now. My flippy discs are stable. And I threw like my first shot fresh out of the car and it went like 360 feet. And I was like, dang, that actually wasn't too bad. And then Albert steps up and throws it and he throws it like 580 feet. And it was just so insane, just the natural power that he gets out of his throw. So awesome dude. Him and, everyone across the pond that I've met are all incredible people. Wicked fun to play disc golf with.
Yeah. So there's obviously a difference between distance throwing attempts, meaning like trying to beat somebody with distance and then trying to throw a shot far, meaning like if I'm in a disc, that sounded really dumb, but like if you're in a disc golf round, you're like, I need to throw this out 450 feet. For me, that's a far throw. And I have to know my line between where I'm just going to spray something and like it's not going to be controlled. Yeah. And like my max distance controlled, right? I mean, there's that line. You got to figure it out.
It's interesting how like the competition is like it's so open ended in the types of rules. And Matt, you hit on that talking about out of bounds. And Albert mentioned at the end kind of a qualification process before a final round. Like your throws in the qualification process don't matter except for qualifying. If you beat the field by 100 feet, doesn't mean a thing if you can't beat them in the finals. So it could just be, hey, everyone throw for the qualification. Whoever's the farthest wins. It could be so many different types of rules. So it's interesting to me how it kind of evolves to be like a set standard.
Yeah.
And what is kind of the most optimal for enjoyment of people, but then also getting the best thrower to win.
I would love to see just a straight up distance competition, like take out the trees, you know, and literally just let these people rip a disc on these massive S lines, you know. Hopefully, I mean, I don't care to see it in 40-mile-per-hour winds, stuff like that, but to actually see a distance competition and letting people air out these shots, I think would be incredible to watch. I mean, filming, they did drones, they had people all over the place, they had spotters running around everywhere, they had the distance markers. I mean, the production in and of itself was incredible.
Production was top notch, like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I honestly, I haven't even watched the full YouTube video yet because the Pro Tour has been doing a great job just pumping out everything on their social media. So I'm seeing tons of it. But for what it's the drone is incredible. Again, I mean, I love the data, seeing the radar speed on every single shot. That's so cool, and just getting to take all of it in. If it was just, you know, a couple cameras on an open field, you don't get that whole feeling. But for what they did, it ends up being incredibly entertaining and pushing 200,000 views. Like, we're talking about Simon getting a lot of views in his vlogs. That's a great number for what his vlogs are getting, as good as they have been. So it cannot slouch at those numbers.
No, I was trying to take it in and consider what I was watching and why I was entertained. And I mean, that's just me being analytical, but I feel like it's a new form of entertainment. And new in its own way, between them having like the drone, the flying follow drone, or whatever you want to call it. I'm having a brain freeze on it, but the drone following the disc of flight, the live commentary with Nate and who was there with him? Brian Earhart, right? Or no, who was it?
Was it Colling and Sexton?
No, it was Sexton, and it was. I think it was Brian. Anyways, if I'm mistaken on that, I'm just having a brain freeze. But let the live commentary right there, to the point where almost the players.
Everyone's saying Luke.
Oh, thank you, Luke Humphrey.
Yep, that makes sense.
But like, you were able to have that. They would interview them immediately. They'd throw their last shot, and you would actually watch them walk over and sit down to get interviewed. The entertainment value was what I'm hoping some of like the all-stars that are coming up in just over 2 weeks, like. That feeling to it of this is real competition, but it's not that uptight feeling to it. It's kind of, it's entertaining and it's fun to watch.
Do we have an idea? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm going to throw out the home run derby for baseball is kind of like their distance competition and how much fun that is. I mean, there's not a big, well-known who can hit the farthest tournament outside of that. But when the competition's happening, it's incredibly fun for their kind of all-star events. So I think Pro Tour would be, it could be their biggest competition at their all-star event. It's incredibly fun to watch, but then you want, like you just said, to have kind of the loose atmosphere, because that's what an all-star event's also about.
Yeah.
Nick is getting solicited in the chat by Coach Chris Taylor. If you want to throw farther, DM me.
Oh, I'll be DMing you tonight.
Excellent guy, by the way.
Sent you his number, Nick. Yeah. You can just text him.
Shout out to Coach Chris. He was very encouraging to my children with information and tips on. He's a coach for golf, for disc golf, for a lot of things, and he's doing really well with it. Reach out to him. Okay, we actually have a live call lined up. If you guys have been hearing things in the background, we got a live caller there. Intern Ben, we can all razz and say whatever we want. He's not going to believe that I threw him under the bus here, but he said he had to pee so badly, and I'm looking off camera. He just ran away. So
we had to give him permission.
Yeah, he had to ask permission. No, I'm kidding. And so I'm going to take care of the mute unmute function. But live caller, if you're hearing us, we're talking to you. Go ahead and introduce yourself, your name, and then give us your topic.
Yeah, hi, my name is Cameron. From Wisconsin. And I just had a little kind of debate. I was just wondering, do you guys think if Gannon has a big year this year, and I know he's on a contract year, do you think his contract this next year is bigger than Simon's?
Well, first of all, I would be stupid to not act like we don't know what Simon's is, because everyone's acting like they know, and Ultiworld's put it out there. So we're going to say it's a millions, even though nobody's ever come forward and said that's the actual deal. So we're just speculating on that, as Simon said. But let's just put that out there that it is, let's say it is millions. You're asking if Gannon has a great year. Is that what you're saying? This year, if Gannon has a good year?
Yeah, I'm saying if he has a little bit better year than he probably had last year.
Okay. Wow.
I think honestly, from my end, I think it's a simple answer of just no. I think one of the main reasons Simon got the contract that he did was, one, he had an incredible year, and two, he's, the second biggest YouTube channel that's strictly disc golf. Now, you could technically say third if you say, Brody, then Jomez, and then Simon. But when it
Let's
comes
say
to
disc golf,
let's say, people that have been doing it longer in disc golf, I would say you have Jomez and Simon. And especially when it comes to views, those are the two biggest channels in the sport right now that are getting the most views. I mean, that's huge marketing in and of itself for any company to sponsor a player. Now, Gannon, being an awesome player, is not at that publicity level yet as Simon is. And so I think when it comes to one of the big things when you're sponsoring a pro is potentially how many discs can he sell? If I put his name on a disc, is it going to sell, and how much of it, how many of them are going to sell? I think Simon's one of the top 5 people in the sport that can really sell plastic. And so even if Gannon, let's say Gannon goes and wins Worlds and USDGC next year, I still don't think, and I could be wrong, and hopefully he proves me wrong with it, but I don't think Gannon gets $1 million. Let's say it's $1 million a year. I don't think Gannon gets $1 million deal.
All right.
If that's just about what it is.
My take, and then we'll get Evans, the reasoning of the group. Like he's my take would be the same as Nick's in a lot of ways, but then I would throw out a hypothetical. Like if Gannon wins somehow a Paul Macbeth 2015 season, he wins every major and he's the hottest player like ever. And you're like, we haven't seen this in a while where somebody's done that. Everybody's going to ask this question that you just brought up. They're all going to ask, he deserves $1 million, he deserves $1 million, he deserves $1 million. And then you're going to have to go, well, who's going to pay him that? So you have to look at that as well, because you have to believe Eagle's next in line. If he has a decent year and plays as good as he has been, he's next in line to get that contract with Discmania. And imagine if Gannon had this awesome year and then like jumped somehow over what perceived Eagle's making, right? Yeah. And so then Discraft is already pretty like saturated.
I mean, let's say we're talking about $1 million deals right now. You've kind of got Paul Macbeth, Ricky Wysocki, and let's say hypothetically Simon Lazat with $1 million deals. What other companies, and let's say Eagle gets $1 million deal from Discmania. We know in years past, Innova is not paying their players the top dollar, as we've seen a lot of players move on from Innova. So it could probably be safe to say that Innova's not going to give $1 million deal. Is Prodigy going to give $1 million deal? And then at that point, okay, DD's already paying it, so maybe Latitude.
Would Gannon want $1 million? Would he want to stay there though? And
every player, I think, in the sport of disc golf right now, if they were offered $1 million, they would move. There. Yeah, they would move whatever company is out there. If you're offered $1 million, life-changing money, and let's say for 5 years, you're switching. There's not a player in the sport right now who would say no to that.
So to the caller, I forget your name. Was it Kyle or Kyler or the phone call? Are you still on there?
Yeah.
Cameron.
I had the K or the C right. Thank you, Cameron. I think it's an interesting question, and I'm going to pass this over to Evan, but I think what we do in disc golf really good is get excited and think the next big thing is there when something not so big happens. I think he would have to do this for a while. That's my answer. I don't think it would happen next year. A big contract for him, yes, but not same as Simon's. What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, I agree. He'll get a hefty raise for sure. I think that's a given. He could have like a solid year and he's still getting a hefty raise. I would expect something more in whatever Heimberg's around, maybe a little bit more. And I have no clue on that, but like mid 6 figures would be like 500,000 would be a lot for him. And I have zero things to base it off of, but I would guess something around that. Like Nick and Matt were saying, it's all about moving the plastic. And I think Paul has proved it. Ricky has proved it. Simon has proved it. So if those are the only 3 with $1 million deals, like that sounds right to me. I don't think Gannon's nearly on that level for moving plastic. Of course, his play is very good. But you can see really good players who you wouldn't really guess that they're earning $1 million, like Chris Dickerson. I don't think anyone's speculating, oh, he should earn $1 million, but he should be getting paid a lot. If you mentioned a 2015 year, like, yeah, you might be pushing the number, but I don't see it happening. The only thing I could see is if a company was really trying to make a splash and they wanted to overpay. Like, I'm gonna throw out a hypothetical right now. Let's say Eagle takes a big deal with a different company. Does Discmania want to make that splash on Gannon? Or another company loses out on their player and they want to make a big splash and they really want to prove, hey guys, we have the resources. We're going to pay this player $1 million a year. Like, I think it would be an overpay, but it would be like a gamble to kind of prove more than there is. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that was an interesting take.
Is really where I'm
interesting
trying to get to
take. Yeah, because like if Discmania lost somehow, some way, all of their top players, then yes, there would be like, well, I hate to say it, but it'd be like a dynamic disc situation where they're like, we need to do some things and we're just going to pay.
Yeah,
Not that Ricky wasn't worth it, but I think it was one of those situations you just brought up, Evan.
Yeah, I think it would be similar to dynamic disc. Like Ricky, I think is worth a bigger contract than Gannon.
Yeah.
I think paying Ricky $1 million a year probably is going to work out, but it did feel like hey, let's make a splash from dynamic. Let's get the number one ranked player in the world for $1 million a year. And maybe someone else wants to do that. I think it's unlikely again, but.
Thank you for your call, Cameron. Let's go ahead and jump into another live call. We have a live caller lined up. If you're hearing us in your phone, that means we're talking to you. Can you introduce yourself by your name and give us your topic?
Hey, I'm Ryan. I'm from Texas. I was going through and I was watching Disc Golf Network's On Tour series, and I was watching the scene where they're playing kickball, and I was wondering who y'all think the best all-around athlete on tour is, like one for MPO and one for FPO.
Are we talking about kickball specifically? Or
No, just
any
athletic.
Sport? I pick a random new sport.
No,
like just all around. Like Kevin Jones made just like an incredible play, but he seems like a guy that could pick up anything and just dominate at it.
Okay. Athlete. And if I was to define athlete, what are we going to pop up? You know, I think we know, but I just want to get it out there for us.
Like,
a person who is proficient in sports. It's a person who's proficient in sports. What comes to your mind? I've got a list.
Though. Can we like say it's a game of dodgeball then? Like, I just want something to go off of.
No, I mean, if
how about they can pick up any sport?
Yeah, when you really think about like athletic people, it's someone who picks up a sport and is just kind of not naturally just good at it, but they just come in and they're better than the.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Other
Paul,
that's
Paul Macbeth, Paul Ulibarri. I'm gonna say Ricky Wysocki, and that sounds like I'm picking all the top players. And then I'm going to say, I feel like there has to be a nod of the hat or the head or whatever to Brody Smith being able to do what he's done in a few different sports. Those are kind of my MPO. When it comes to FPO, Paige Pierce, absolutely. Katrina Allen. I'm going to have to pick one, but I'm just saying, like, these women at the top, I believe are all athletic, like not just because they play well at disc golf, but like Katrina or Sarah Hokum comes from, or is it Katrina and Sarah both come from volleyball, like at a college level.
Yep.
Paige Pierce, if you've seen her off the course, she plays a little bit of everything. Like she's really into spike ball, or she can play ping pong. I mean, I'm picking some other random sports, but like
Dodgeball.
Yeah, frisbee.
Look, I was a D6 basketball player, so I'm gonna have to toot my own horn. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so we have to pick. So we have to pick. Who's your favorite? Most athletic? You said one MPO, one FPO.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've played a lot of outside sports with a decent amount of the top pros. Paul is someone who just naturally is good at sports. Was a good baseball player. We went bowling before. He played very well in bowling. He's a decent golfer. Basketball player, like he's just an all-around athletic dude. And so I think because I've spent the most time seeing him play other sports, I would want to tip my hat to him. And then I think Ella Hansen, from what kind of everyone is describing as a really, really good ultimate player before coming into the sport. But I also, I don't 100% know. I mean, Sarah and Katrina coming from a volleyball background, I could say maybe them. And I know Kat also loves playing golf. So
we got to pick
Kat,
one.
Yeah,
You're most.
I'll say Kat and Paul.
All right. Evan, what do you think?
This is tough. I think I would go if it was like purely hand-eye coordination sport. I think Paul is like a fantastic. I mean, it's all the mental and stuff. But if we're getting into like a little bit more athletic, a little bit more physical, like Kevin Jones is one that people think of. I kind of want to think of a little bit more outside the box, like maybe like a Chris Clemens or a Luke Sampson kind of coming to mind. Just like a little bit like well-rounded would be my guess for those players too. But also I could see them being strong and athletic.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, definitely
that is a tough.
KJ was what, like a college football player, college kicker before coming into.
He was a kicker. So if we're saying if it was kickball,
but I mean, growing up though, it's not like he just specifically did kicking. I'm sure in high school he probably played 3 different positions. I mean, I played football for a year, and I played cornerback and wide receiver. So I mean, you have a lot of athletic people. Jeremy Colling is a really good basketball player, along with Paul Ulibarri, are both really good basketball players.
So I would take like Andrew Marweed in basketball, or Connor O'Reilly too. Like, it's kind of tough to have kind of an all-around sport because
but at the same time, and I know you guys don't have kids that I'm aware of, but it's interesting looking at my children, and they all have different natural giftedness, right? And they can all play disc golf, but there's certain ones are standing out to me in my head as being like, and my wife will have this conversation, will say, there's a natural athletic talent there. Like, give him a football, he can throw it perfectly. Give him a baseball, he swings the bat right. Give him basketball, he's
biggest thing,
hoops.
Just that hand-eye coordination and teaching that into a kid early on. I mean,
so who is that on the course?
There are also, I'll say this really quick, there's also a lot of top pros who are some of the most athletic disc golfers, and they are super unathletic when it comes to almost any other sport. Like, I've seen a couple disc golfers shoot a basketball, and I'm like embarrassed to watch it. Like, I want to burn my eyes out.
Have you ever? I think it was like the Argentina soccer team, so like Messi and a bunch of other great players playing basketball, and you're like, oh my goodness, I could beat Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo in one-on-one basketball. Like, I am confident of it. So I'm not trying to shame them if they aren't picking up sports.
Long story short, to our caller, I picked Paige and Kat, or excuse me, Paul and Kat.
Okay, and I know that Kevin Jones I've talked about it in previous episodes. KJ's pretty athletic. I feel like, are we missing some European player? I mean, Simon, but this is where
Simon is so good at niche sports, but put a basketball in his hand, and I bet you he doesn't make 1 3-pointer.
Yeah, but the way, so I know now I'm picking.
But as a darts player and like a pool player,
disc golfer,
this is where I wanted some guidelines, because we could go on and on about it's some random sport, and it's going to be totally different.
It's tough. That was a good call though.
I do agree with the Ella Hansen call. I almost want to go like Evelina Salonen for like she played not pickleball, but that kind of sport. I think
Zach
it's called
Melton
paddle.
is nasty at pickleball, so like Zach could be in it.
Is pickleball even a sport? I'm just kidding.
You guys are missing Holland Hanley. I feel like that's
Holland Hanley. Yep.
Yeah, sure, Ben.
Yep.
I'm just kidding. No, that's a great answer.
Someone goes, Anthony Allegra says, Matteo for talking Alabama trivia.
Can we say that most pro players in disc golf have some level of athleticism, obviously. Yeah. But then I think of like Stacey Ronsley. I remember she was telling us, was it volleyball as well?
Maybe.
When we had her on. Like, so these players are definitely doing other things, and they're like, hey, disc golf's pretty cool, and there's an opportunity. Let's go do it. So, all right. I think we have another caller lined up. Intern Ben's the one screening these, so I hope we got something good here. Let's see how it goes. Go ahead and if you're hearing me on the phone call, thank you for reaching out to us. Go ahead and give us your name and what's your topic. To the this is the Nick and Matt show.
Hey Nick, this is Joe, and my topic was over this weekend. They had the PGA tournament at Torrey Pines, and they mic'd up one of the players on day 3 during the middle of the round, during one of the holes. And do you think that would be a good idea if the PDGA did that with a player during the round, during an actual round, just not one of the practice rounds or something? Just your thoughts.
Yeah, so thank you for submitting that, and you sent a YouTube link for that, and so I was able to check that out earlier, and it's interesting for sure. I'm not sure if you've watched the Jomez coverage where they do round coverage with mics, like they're mic'd up. Now, Jomez picks and chooses what makes the cut. I'm sure they're not putting in obvious profanity or whatever else might get said by our top players, but they are mic'd up during a real round. I think the interesting part would be to bring it to live coverage which is a little bit harder to manage because then they're going to have to do some type of stream delays and all that stuff to make sure that they can filter if they need to. But the concept is great. Now, my take on this is that the players who are going to say yes to this, I don't know if they're the players that everyone's most interested in hearing from. Because like I don't see our top most competitive saying, yeah, like throw a mic on me live. Like, I don't know. Maybe they would.
Let me cut you off. Like with the Pro Tour starting to have tour cards, they can start to say some of this stuff. They can say, hey, under your tour card agreement, we're allowed to pick you out. Let's say, like, it could even be as simple as, hey, 1 interview per year, not in final round or something, like something pretty friendly like that. It could be second round, 16th hole. We get to mic you up, and it's part of your agreement. If you say no, like we could choose to strip your tour card. Like, like I'm getting into hypothetical here, not that they're actually doing that.
You're getting into dictatorship.
Well, that's. Hey, but is that not what the other sports do? Like, I don't know if this.
I have no idea. I have my comments. I have my comments after.
Think of the NFL. The NFL. All the greats have done it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Caller, go ahead.
For the PGA Tour, this is a brand new initiative. And this is only their second or third round or second or third tournament this season. Luckily, they did this with this person on the third round. So, and I think he was like in 7th or 8th place at the time. And then he ended up winning the tournament there at Torrey Pines. Yeah.
Yeah. During the interview, he was tied for third. Yeah.
Who was it?
During that time?
Max Homa.
It was,
okay.
Max Homa.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. So I'll finish my thought though. Sorry. Is I think what really made this special with the PGA Tour is they're talking through his process. It wasn't like, hey, how's it going? How's the weather? Like, how are you feeling? Like a generic, like coach halftime interview in any other sport. Like it was like getting into his thought process. And I think that's really cool. Like now imagine, for the Jomez ones that have happened before, or like if you have like GK skins and things like that, it's general feelings and just general chit chat. I really like this because it was an interview and it was like, hey, what are you thinking right here? Like someone just threw in the rough. What's going through your mind? What's your game plan?
Going to
this hole, like there's water on this side and thick woods on this side. What is your game plan? What are you aiming for? What is your goal here? If you execute, awesome. If you don't execute, then what's your plan? That's really cool and insightful. And I think it was a great move by the PGA Tour because it's getting people to understand the game more and to really get engaged in golf, which is a slow sport. And so disc golf, I think, would be a very good thing to engage.
I'm gonna play this audio for you that Evan just talked about. So just listen. I think you're right, Evan. This kind of sound was really cool. So I'll kind of jump around a little bit to get where we need, but here's the start of it.
We're heading over to 13, and we're going to introduce a new initiative. And we thank Max Homa for allowing us to do this. We have given him an earpiece, and we're going to be able to watch and listen and even speak to Max as he plays this par 5 13th hole.
So then he goes and he hits his drive, and as he's walking down the fairway, they're literally talking to him. So let me kind of get there.
Max, can you hear me? It's Trevor up in the booth.
Hey, Trev. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. Beautiful tee shot there down the middle. Talk us through that with the dog leg left. Are you trying to sweep the draw there? You're trying to go with the butter cut? What is the process for you?
Yeah, I primarily cut it off the tee, so this one's a little awkward. I get about a coach and caddy let me draw one, maybe once a day, maybe once a week.
I'm just going to kill it there. But the point is, that is different. That is different than anyone has done. And I guess thank you for teeing that up, no pun intended, Evan, because we were talking about just like miking up players, but there's a difference here. And that was my point when I was saying, I don't think I see a lot of our players at the top level right now wanting that. I don't know if they're too uptight or not, but I don't think they want somebody in the DGN booth being like, so tell us about that drive you just threw, right? And like the fans would love that. I don't see our players unless you say, like you said, Evan, but I don't think they're going to make them do it.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, what's your thought?
I just want to know why we don't have a shot in disc golf called the butter cut, because that sounds incredible. I have no idea what a butter cut is, but I want it in disc golf. I want to steal something else from golf and put it in disc golf, and that's the butter cut. Maybe that'll be my next disc. Will be the butter cut. Anyways, I think that's super cool. I think it would be a little harder in disc golf. And the reason I say that is our holes are much shorter. So I think time-wise of getting up to the next shot is definitely not as much time. So, hey, what'd you do here? If it's only a 280-foot hole, unless you're specifically saying on this par 5, we're going to mic you up and talk to us about it. I think it would be super boring on a wide open course.
What about waiting to tee off? Well, they kind of do this, but waiting to tee off if there's a backup, like being able to interview, in that kind of way. But again, I don't see our players wanting that.
I could see some players wanting it. I think there's I think there's a lot of players who would actually really get into that.
Our top 5, top 10.
It also depends on how they're playing. I mean, realistically, if you take a guy who, in round 3, who is on chase card or third card, they might be in somewhat of a better mood compared to the guy who's in third place but having a really bad round. So it's just dropping him, like the guy who's on the lead card and just having a really bad round. Like, obviously, you're probably not going to be able to mic up him, but maybe that guy that's on third card will be more conversational about it. I could see it going both ways.
The way they did it here in this PGA mic'd up situation was really intriguing. And so to the caller that provided it to us, thank you very much for that. Thank you for that topic.
And just to round out for 1 second, Matt, I think it's tough to say, hey, does the player want it? Because some players are going to be like, hey, I don't want fans on the course. Some players are going to be like, hey, I don't want any cameras on the course anywhere around me because you're getting into my way. Like, there are things that you have to evolve around. Yes, this is more, let's say, intrusive than cameras or fans, but it is another step in the ultimate goal. And what the players play for is to make money from these tournaments, have fans. And this, I think, is a good initiative that will go more fans, but of course it's about the right medium.
I think the biggest thing though is no mid-round interviews in the sense of, hey, I'm Nick Carl and I'm here with Evan Kearns now. Evan, how's your round going? Stuff like that's garbage. Miking up someone and then Terry Miller and Nate Doss talking to booth saying, hey Nick, you just threw, or hey Evan, you just threw this incredible shot. Talk to us about how you're attacking this dogleg left par 4. And then
this was in good taste.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. They did it right.
But like pulling someone over and saying like, oh, hey, let's talk mid-round. Like, that just sounds awful.
What about you're coming into the final 3 holes and you're down 1. What's your strategy? In all seriousness, if it was just for the fans, there would be so much intrigue to that. But we know there's a lot more going on than that. So I don't see that happening, but I would like to see some of that happen. All right. I think we have another caller lined up, intern Ben.
Yep.
All right. Yep. All right. Let's see. This is our last live call. Thank you. If you're hearing us on your phone, you're on. What's your name and what's your topic?
Hey, my name's Tamm. I'm in Vermont, and my topic is, every time you talk about disc golf or players talk about it, they talk about it being a game, a mental game. It's all a mental game. And so my thought is that I think that we should outlaw earbuds during tournament play. I think it's a way for players to get out of their own heads, to escape, and I think it, in some ways, it's an unfair advantage, and I think it would level the playing field in some form or another.
Interesting topic.
Something that we've brought up a lot before in the past,
episodes,
and I'll say this when it comes to, and this is me, my own, as Nick Carl, this is my personal opinion. I think when people are wearing headphones during a tournament round on, Jomez or DGN, I think it looks super unprofessional. That's my own personal opinion. I wish headphones were banned from tournament play. That's just me. I just think it looks trashy. And I don't know. Maybe there's a huge advantage to it. Maybe there is. But what's to say like a player who you have a 10-minute backup on a hole, you go and walk 50 feet away from your card, you take your phone, you put it up to your ear and you listen to that song. Like, I just think headphones look awful. So that's why
yours is appearance mainly.
Yes.
Is it banned in golf? Because Max Homa in an interview had it on his ear, but I didn't know if that was only for the interview.
I think it was just for the interview.
Yeah, if it was probably just for the interview, then.
Okay.
I mean, like pre-shot or like pre-warm-ups, pre-tournament warm-ups, stuff like that, wear them until they say your name on hole 1, then that's what I would say.
All right, I'm going to bring up the devil's advocate or the hypotheticals, all that stuff. I could do that forever. And snowboarding in the Olympics or anything like that, like skateboarding. I know we're not skateboarding or snowboarding, but there's something about the culture of both of those sports where you see them throw on over-the-ear headphones or they get their earbuds. They're literally looking at their phone. They hit play on their playlist before they do the half pipe, right? and nobody else is hearing that, and it's putting them in the groove or in the mindset to be able to perform at their best. So part of me goes, everybody could do that. Everybody can do that right now. So I don't see it as a fairness thing. I feel like if you know what's going to allow you to play better and it's within the rules, you should do it. I'm going to say something that everyone's going to hate. Bill Belichick and the Patriots were, argue it how you want, they were best known for exploiting where the rules were missing.
Whoa.
They would say there's no rules here and it's going to help us, so we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm not saying to take it as far as cheating, of course. But when it comes to earbuds, I don't think I would say it's unfair.
I don't, like I said, I don't think it's super unfair. And I'm also, if I'm playing on a card with someone, I'm never going to go up to them and say like, hey, I think that looks awful. Or like, I think you're getting an unfair advantage. Like, it does not bother me that much.
Yeah.
I'm just saying when I'm personally watching it, it's like, I don't know. I just like, what if I'm watching a pro golfer and all of a sudden he just got Beats by Dre on? And I'm just like, what am I looking at right now?
Well,
like, I don't know. If it's
okay.
allowed, then I can't complain too much about it, which I don't think I've really ever complained about it. I just think it looks bad in my own personal opinion.
I know they're different sports. Like the ones I brought up, they're different. I'm sure I could find others. And I would agree. If I saw them in golf wearing headphones, it would be a interesting or a look of like, what are they doing? But at the same time, and I know it's different, but how clean do some of these NFL players look getting off the plane going to the Super Bowl with their Beats by Dre or whoever? Like, it can look really professional too. Now, I know they're on the course.
Then show up to the tournament wearing a 3-piece suit and your Beats by Dre. And then everyone will think, hey, man, you look fly before your round. That's great. That's amazing.
You fed right into Nick's argument.
Yeah.
No. I'm talking about how they look. Like it's not a bad look. What you're saying is it looks out of place on the course.
When they're playing, yes.
It looks out of place.
Yes.
It's not that it looks bad. You're not actually saying like, dude, that looks bad.
Oh, I think some headphones look horrible. Like, dude, if I was to show up in a tournament in these, I would think I'm the biggest loser, on the course. Now a pair of AirPods are a lot more slick, and especially the new, like the latest gen of them, they're definitely a lot more slick. People could argue that they're distracting when it comes to like trying to get score and the person doesn't hear it. You could
that's
argue
all
that,
a side topic right now.
That's a side topic.
I agree. You'd have to make sure you can hear and be able to call. All that. That's separate.
If people are warming up for the tournament, they got whatever headphones they want to wear. You could take headphones from 20 years ago and wear those, and no one's going to bat an eye at it. But the second that the tournament round starts, I think when I'm watching Jomez or DGN or anything like that, I don't think it looks great. But like I said, that's just me.
And I'm doing devil's advocate because I think I actually agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I don't love the idea of just because we think something looks a certain way. If it's like okay, I'm going to take it a step further. We'll probably ruffle some feathers. Smoking. The PDGA has not allowed it on the properties at these events. And I don't know if that's fully because of advantage or perception. There could be a little bit of both saying like, hey, I need the nicotine. So then they can do a nicotine patch if they need to or whatever. Or vaping is not allowed is my understanding as well.
Yeah. I think any tobacco products are
But
not
I
allowed.
think, and again, this is off the cuff right now, but the majority of that is probably due to a perception thing. If maybe that happens someday for headphones or earbuds, but it's not right now. But I agree, it does look a little funny. That's my kind of summarization. Yeah. Evan, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm pretty neutral on this. I think my only thought is the caller is specifically saying about it like an unfair advantage. I don't quite see that being the case. I mean, if you use music to get like in a groove and get your mind off the game and help your mental game, you could easily do that with a lot of other things. Besides like a fan like heckling you, like you can't get that out. Like, but that doesn't really happen. Like if you're just trying to get into like the zone, you can do it in so many different ways. I mean, Eagle McMahon has this. I'm forgetting what it's called, but the game that he brought on the show and was. Thank you. It's kendama. That gets him in the zone. It gets his mind just like calm.
Right.
Is that an unfair advantage? I mean, some people play, like cards during backup. Some people have like beads on their bag. Some people just twiddle their thumbs. There's so many different ways to get out of the zone. So I don't necessarily see that as being like unfair advantage. I don't mind if that does help out. I see the pros and cons of trying to look good and look professional. I also see the, I guess it's pros and pros. It's just the different sides of kind of just laid back sport that we have. So I'm not going to make an argument either way.
And I'm going to take this one little step differently because Nick talked about the appearance of it. Albert, Tamm. I don't know how to do that.
Nice.
I don't know how to do that, but he wears shades, right? Now, shade like glasses.
Yeah.
They look
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
They look fine. They're professional,
Yep.
right? And a lot of players are doing that. And now I'm going to try to cross both of these. Have you tried on any of these new Bose or any of these other headphones now that are glasses? They go through, they're like, I forget what they call them.
Are they vibration?
Yeah,
headphones,
they go into
essentially?
the side of your head where it's vibrating. And so when you're
Oh,
wearing
that's cool.
glasses,
Well, someone was just saying if I'm using headphones in a tournament, I use the Trek Z Aftershock. They don't go in your ears. They play through the
Yes,
bone conduction on
exactly.
your cheeks. So
So
you have
this is
music
what I'm talking
going,
about.
but ears are open. I've never even heard of
so
that.
my point I'm making is you wouldn't really be able to tell people are listening to anything and they'd be wearing glasses. So with that in mind, Nick, does that fix for you what your kind of issue was? Like it wouldn't look bad.
Yeah,
It'd be-
I mean,
it'd be
yeah, I think
sunglasses.
appearance-wise, if it doesn't
look good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it looks good, I don't think the music is an unfair advantage. Like
Okay.
if someone's watching music, or excuse me, oh God, that was
Listening.
awful. If someone's listening to music, like I don't think if I'm complaining that they're getting an unfair advantage, then I'm just an idiot and a bad player, to be honest. Like I don't think someone's gonna beat me because they had headphones in and I
Right.
didn't, or they were
Right.
listening to music and I wasn't. But
Well, there you
Uh,
go. I found maybe the crossover there. And actually, there is pretty interesting technology. You can actually try it. This is not a paid ad over at Best Buy, the local store to you. You can go try them out. They're pretty neat. All right. That was it for our live calls. We ran behind on our start. We're not going to go extra long on the closeout here, but I did want to ask as a closeout question. And this is just like very large, not rhetorical, large and open-ended is like, what's going to happen this season? So we're really close. Last season, we saw a lot of different winners.
Mhm.
A lot of me wants to believe that's what we're going to see again. If I had to ask Evan, the stat guy, does it seem like either Paul or Ricky, now this is hard to say Ricky, but do you feel like these top 3 or 4 players had, how do you say this? I want to say off years because we've seen some of them perform at higher levels as far as wins are concerned. Obviously, if they finish in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 last year, they did fine. But as far as wins are concerned, I guess is what I'm trying to focus on. They didn't have the same amount as like a dominant season. Are we going to see that? And I know we talk about that at the end of last year. Is the dominance of, disc golf players over? What do you think, Evan? Do you think it's like done and we're going to continue to see like spread out?
Yeah, if you're talking dominance, like double digit wins, I think we've seen the end of that. It would have to take like people are going to say like Kristen Tatar could do it next year. Maybe get it, Burr. I don't know. I think we're done seeing that at least for a long time. It'd have to be a especially historic season to see double digits. But if we're talking someone winning, let's say 6 tour events in a year, I think that's possible. I don't think it should be the expectation for a top 1 or 2 player, though. If both Paul McBeth and Ricky Wysocki come out next year and let's say win a max of 3 or 4 tournaments like they did this year, pretty much, I'm not calling that an off year, especially if you're counting in the top 10s. Like you said, we're not talking about that. If we're purely wins, 3-4 sounds great. I think Tatar, you're probably expecting 5 or 6 or maybe 7, assuming she plays a full year. That sounds about right. I wouldn't be surprised if it was lower end of 5. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the higher end of like 8. I just don't think it's going to be double digits total dominance. I think we're going to change our expectations compared to like 2015 with Paul McBeth.
Thank you for
Even
clarifying.
2019 with Paul McBeth.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. I didn't read that question out very well. When I said dominance or off year, it was with the understanding of how wins used to be. So the way the season went, they didn't have an off year. Exactly. Yeah.
Paul McBeth maybe having an off year because he's not winning every week, but he's still getting, top 15s regularly.
Yeah.
So I think people need to adjust that expectation. And the year Paul McBeth, of course he won Worlds.
Yeah.
But it was a good year.
Like what is our expectation at this point now in the sport of disc golf of what is a dominating year? Simon had 4 Elite Series wins. Ricky had 4 Elite Series wins on top of the Pro Tour Championships. Paul won a major with an Elite Series win. I mean, what do we see as dominant now? I don't think we're going to ever see a 2015 Paul McBeth type year again in the MPO division. Now,
Gannon Burr.
I would definitely say, I think Kristen will win a majority of the tournaments next year. Because I honestly, right now, I just think she's that much better than a majority of the players in her division.
I can't wait. FPO has never been so exciting. Haley King just dropped her tour schedule. And last year, that was, I'll say her issue was consistency, like hitting tournaments. Yeah. She had a lot going on, is my understanding.
And like, you know, personal stuff going on definitely does not allow you to go up as much as you'd like. Go ahead, Evan.
I'm going to have a bold take, and I'm going to argue against you and say I think people will be surprised with. I don't want to say how few events Kristen's going to win, because she's going to win a lot still. Yeah. But people are going to expect, if she plays the whole tour, to probably hit that like 8 wins that I was saying. I think that there's going to be a lot more fantastic women coming for the wins. I mean, I think Paige and Kat are going to have like a rejuvenated offseason. I think honestly they're a little shook by how good Kristen was. I think offseason is going to give them the right amount of time. And then we have all these up and comers. I mean, Valerie Mandujano, although she's going to miss part of the year with her injury, it is only getting better. We're talking about all these other players only getting better. I think we're going to see that gap close on any given weekend. I think Kristen Tatar is going to be overall the best throughout the season, though.
I mean, Coach Chris Taylor literally just said it best. Evelina has the best stats in the FPO division. if she can putt. I mean,
which I actually, I'm going to cut you off again.
Go ahead.
I did some analysis in this. If Evelina Salonen putts 75%, which for FPO is pretty good. It's a little bit above average. If she does that, like, she has by far the best birdie percentage on tour for the women. Like, that's her goal. Just go 75%, which I think is completely attainable. It is above average, but I think any woman in the field can hit that if they just put effort into putting. It's just where your priorities fall. But
so
she is so good, just needs one small thing to figure out.
Perspective is everything.
One small big thing.
One small huge thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perspective is everything, because, and you've been around long enough, Nick, and others here, I'm sure, to remember the dominance of Paige Pierce.
Yeah.
And I've known that for a lot of my disc golf life. Like, Paige came in about the time, I don't know, 4 or 5 years into it, she started really doing well. And then that's kind of who I knew for a long time as being dominant. She'd win everything. Mm-hmm. You kind of get used to, like, that's how things are. And then Kristen comes in. And I don't mean to downplay Katrina. Very large part of the story, the battle back and forth between Paige. But then you have Kristen coming in and having what we would call a dominant season enough, meaning the event she showed up to, she won, or she was on podium.
Yeah. Literally 100% of the time.
Yes. So you kind of get conditioned in your brain to think that, like, it's got to be somebody doing this. But I think, to Evan's point, the year that Kristen had, do you think it's like repeatable statistically? I mean, it obviously it can happen, but like the statistical likelihood of like continuing that is the FPO division there, like, where it's like, well, there's nobody that's really able to knock her off. She's in the top 3. It's gonna it's a stat that's just gonna be, you know. And I don't know. I don't think she's gonna win as many as she did last year. I think that was an excellent year, and I think she's a phenomenal player. But I'm rolling the dice on stats. We'll just see. Maybe she comes back better.
Yeah.
But I'm excited.
She could. Yeah.
I'm excited. There's a lot of great FPO talent out there. It's not the Paige Pierce show anymore.
Yep.
So MPO side, is it the same old, same old?
I think it's going to be super diverse next year on who wins any event. I mean, it's depending on what changes with courses. I mean, I heard Vegas is changing a little bit. We got the Open at Austin this year, which is a brand new tournament. We've got Paul going away to Europe for 7 or 8 weeks, you know, and showcasing the European events with all the European players out there as well. I think kind of like this past season, we're going to see a lot of new winners in the circle. I think you'll have the consistent guys. Like, I think Ricky and Paul will be consistent. I think Gannon could potentially be up there in the consistency of winning these events. But there's a lot of talented players in the MPO division. So at this point, it really is who's been really working their butt off during the off season and can come out, you know, strong going into this year.
Man, every year we're interested to see what it is, because it writes a storyline. Yeah. I don't have a big take for this year. I'd have to really sit and think a lot longer about it, but I think we're going to have a fair amount of parity as well, like we have had. And I've said this last year, and I still believe it. Eventually, if disc golf continues on this trend, it will be a career achievement to win one of these events. Mm-hmm. Eventually, when you have 72 players who could win any given week.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Well, I mean, you kind of feel that way in PGA right now. Like, I could not make a legitimate bet on any player, except I would look at, who's been playing well lately. Like John Rahm is a great person to bet on right now in golf. Max Homa just won that last event that we were talking about earlier. But disc golf has slowly gone that direction of, we've had tournaments where I think it was, Paul won Waco and then didn't cash at DDO. Ricky won DDO, but then didn't cash at Des Moines. Simon, who we haven't seen win an event in a while, wins 4 of them throughout the year. And so it's kind of like, who are we betting at? Corey Ellis, 2 second place finishes this year. Aaron Gossage almost winning Worlds. It's so many different players now. And at this point, I think in the MPO division, it can be a lot of people's weekend, where 5 years ago, we were like, yeah, there's still really only 4 or 5 people who can consistently win on tour right now. I do think, though, in the FPO division, we do have shooters in the FPO division. Like, we've seen a lot of different players win in FPO. The Valerie Mandajanos, Katrina Allen, Paige Pierce's, Kristen Tatar's, players of that caliber. But I just think personally right now, if I'm a betting man and I'm saying who's going to take down Vegas, which I don't even know if Kristen's going to Vegas.
She is not.
She is not. Okay, so if I'm saying like who's potentially, if she's going to Waco, is she going to Waco?
I think Waco is her start.
Okay, if I'm going to say who is potentially going to win Waco, I would say Kristen Tatar, just because of the stats and the incredibleness that she had last season. But that's just me.
She's going to be consistent, but man, you got to believe that Paige, Katrina, Valerie, Haley, and I'm leaving some names out that are up and comers, as in they're starting to make their name. I'm really hoping that we get a place where there's 10 women that are in contention going into the last round. Like, that will make for exciting disc golf.
2020, what is Kristen rated right now? 992? Like 2023 might be the year that we see 1,000 rated FPO player if Kristen can really jump out those extra 8 points.
Imagine that.
So, I mean, there's just a lot that can happen this year. And I think in the next 2 weeks, we'll have the speculation episodes of our hot takes, who's going to win, who's not going to win, and like legitimize it. But go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, I just, to go back to your point about the betting favorites, I think like Kristen Tatar clearly is going to stay at that, even if there's going to I think there is going to be a few more winners this year, even more battle at the top. I mean, Tatar ran away with enough last year. I think it's going to be slimmer this year, but I still think she's going to be the favorite. And on the MPO side, I still would say that Paul or Ricky will be your favorite most weekends. I mean, maybe Gannon gets on a hot streak.
Eagles back.
Plays a few events and you're like, wow, he's looking like European Open Eagle. So maybe you kind of get these new favorites, but it's gonna be the same old names that you always think of.
What if Simon repeats, man? Like 3 wins? Like, come on.
I'm telling you, that MVP deal is going to look mightily good for them. If he wins multiple events this year, like discs are already selling off the shelves. Excuse me. It'll be unbelievable to see what happens.
Simon wins Worlds.
Burn down.
The year he switched to MVP.
Vermont. We had last time we went to Vermont, we had 2 players who you did not expect to win Worlds went on to win Worlds with Paige Shue and Greg Barsby. So I think Worlds being in Vermont is incredible for that reason, and I'm obsessed with Vermont. So
counterpoint though, how did Simon do at GMC last year?
I was just gonna say,
I don't know. Temper your expectations. I believe he missed cash. I don't want to rag on him. He was actually he went from winning him. No, he went from
he went from potentially missing cash to winning the next weekend. Is that what you're saying?
I'll jump in stat real quick that I actually found out while we were doing the Simon interview. I of course did not say it during that episode. Didn't want to shine him in good or bad light. It's kind of a combo. Simon's the first player ever to win 2 elite or majors in a year, and come outside the top 50 2 or more times. Multiple wins and multiple outside 50s in the same year.
What a guy. What a guy.
First player ever to do that. There have been players who have had one or a single one. Like Conor O'Reilly comes to mind, and when he won Delaware. Not to rag on him either. Name drop just one of the list. But I would already argue that MPO has already seen kind of career accomplishments by just winning an elite event. I think Bradley Williams, of course, he won in 2016 at the Vibram Open, the first ever Pro Tour, but winning this past year Preserve, like that's a career moment. Like, hey, that's I'm going to say it's about Bradley's peak right now in his career. He's a very good player, but winning an elite event like that is like one a season is his peak. I mean, a little bit Drew Gibson too. He's won 2 now as well. That was, his year achievement right there was winning LVC, That's the one solo thing that stands above. You ask Ricky, I mean, which one? Maybe the one with 35K. Maybe it was a different event like Ledgestone, but it's like you don't know which one, which was his best performance. So it really stands out. I mean, I think we already saw Isaac Robinson getting on the scene. Like, as good of a player he is, he might win 0 events this year. It's very likely that he just does not win. He's good enough to win, but there is a chance he doesn't. So I think we're already seeing it. It's already here. I don't think FPO is quite there yet, where it's a career achievement that we see one win. I think we'll see multiple. It's definitely growing there.
Agreed.
Yeah, there's a lot to look at, and we will break that down. We've got other interviews lined up already. I'm not going to tease them out yet until we're sure about the actual schedule of it all. But we're down to the end of the show here. We've talked about a lot. We started out a little bit crazy tonight because of our show's actual tech stuff, but we've made it. Nick's in studio. Intern Ben held it down. Evan, and then we had Albert. Tom. He said Tom.
Tom.
I think it's Tom.
Tom.
Yeah.
Tom.
Tom.
Say it again.
Tom.
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 All right.
Like, start saying the M and then stop.
Yeah.
Tom.
Okay.
And then David Wiggins.
Really quick, before everyone actually does end up leaving, well, actually,
they already did.
Yeah, everyone's already leaving because we're at the end of the show. But go check out the Jomez premiere with Simon and Jomez and the video that they're coming out with. Tonight is the night. I think it started at 9:00. So after this, go check it out. Our boy Simon is doing incredible things in the sport of disc golf. So,
fun fact for those of you who stayed this far. Here, I'll put it up. Go full screen on me, I guess. This is Simon in studio. Ooh, focus. Whoa, look how scary I look. He's relaxed. I'm scary. This was us filming in studio with Jomez, or not filming, recording voiceover. So the voiceover you hear is here recorded in the Nick and Matt Show studio. There you go. Bonus fact.
Pretty cool. So everybody,
with Ben's microphone, right?
Yeah, I sold that the pop filter for the mic from last episode for $1,000.
What they don't know is he bought like 100 of those pop filters.
Yep.
And he just sells off the brand new ones.
Now.
There you go.
All right, so close it out, Nick. It's been a little while since you've done it in the studio.
Yeah, I know, right? Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Sorry about the mix-up that we had at the beginning of the show, but for everyone that's listening post-produced, you are not going to know a single thing that went wrong. So, to our live viewers, thank you so much for bearing with us. I hope you all enjoyed this incredible Monday night. I'll be here for about a month. Should be another 2 or 3 more episodes that I will be in studio for. So super looking forward to all that. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, please and thank you. Also check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms. Tell someone you love them this week. We'll catch you in the next one.
Ben, you're awesome. Nick, you're awesome. Evan, you're awesome. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
The Nick and Matt Show, a disc golf podcast designed for you, the disc golfer. Find the Nick and Matt Show on your favorite podcast platforms or join the conversation live on YouTube.